What's up, buff dudes and girls? We're here in the gym today because we're building a sexy back. That's right. We're gonna be going over some of the muscles in the back and the functions of them in certain exercises you wanna perform to build your best back. And of course, we have Michaela here to help out. And she's got a sexy back already, but these are some of the exercises she's used to develop her back, and me too. It's not just for girls, it's not just for guys. All these exercises work for everyone, and that's what's so great. So we're gonna go over some of those important movements and also some of the muscles that involved and make up the back so you can build that sexy back. If you want hundreds of exercise tutorials available to you at your fingertips, check out our Buff Fitness app, available on iOS and Android. Okay, just trying to steal the show over here. Firstly, before we get to the exercises, which we're actually setting up right now, but I do want to go over some of the specific muscles that make up the back. Now, there's a lot of them. Probably the most well-known muscle in the back is the latissimus dorsi muscle, which is going to be more of the outside area, the lat muscle there. It kind of brings in the width. Okay, we're gonna use Michaela's little anatomy chart here. So she, boom, look at that lat spread. Lat spread for a reason, because your lats are like your wings, as you can see out here. They kind of make up this outer portion, but it is a fan muscle, so it's connecting your thoracic spine down to your lumbar. It's connecting all through here, the origin, and the insertion brings up, kind of folds under, and attaches to your humerus. So what does all that mean? Well, it's gonna kind of tell you what motions and movements the lat is going to help with. Because it attaches the humerus up here, boom, see, look at this, it stretches it out. It's going to help with shoulder extension, bringing that arm downward, just like that. So it's pulling on the humerus and it's contracting, shortening, and pulling that arm down. So we are set up here at the pull-up bar because pull-ups are probably the #1 most well-known back exercises that you can do. But we do want to go over some of the issues with pull-ups. Now, the issue is pull-ups are extremely difficult because you can't control your body weight or the amount of weight or load that's placed onto this exercise. But wait, you actually can, thankfully. And that's why we have these bands. So the bands are going to lighten the load or your own body weight. So that way, if you're not strong enough to perform a pull-up, this will allow you to do that. There's also other machines too, assisted pull-up machines that can control the weight or the load that's placed on your back. But we would highly recommend doing this exercise, which is going to be the pull-up. But thankfully, if you can't do a pull-up on your own, there's help. So Michaela here has got the band, and I'm gonna help her out here, pull this down. As you can see, her grip is about shoulder width, slightly outside, and she's going to be pulling her own body up to the bar there. Boom, just like so. So those lats are contracting, shortening, and pulling that humerus, boom, into position. And there you go. Lats are activated. Nice, nice, good job. So is it just the lats that are working in this exercise? Absolutely not. And that's what we kind of mentioned in the intro there. There are many muscles, multiple muscles, all connected throughout the back. It's really hard to target one muscle at a time. So although the lat is extremely large, it's the largest muscle in the back, and strong, that's not the only muscle working, especially in a compound movement like this. So as you'll see, Michaela putting her arms up, acting like she's doing a pull-up, pulling down, the lats activating, but wait a sec, you see all these other muscles bulging out. And one major one is going to be the traps. So let's talk about the traps for a second here. The traps are a large muscle. They actually make up, kind of coming through the neck, so it's the upper, the middle, and the lower traps there. So it's almost like a manta ray or something kind of coming through the back there. So it's taking up a large portion of the middle back. So you think of the lats, more the outside back, the traps would be more of the middle back there. Now the traps are definitely activated in the pull-up. And the reason being is you're going to have to depress your shoulder to get into that proper pull-up position. So as you'll see Michaela here, nice stretch position, stretch all the way, depressing, boom. See that depression right there? That is one of the main movements of the trap muscle there. So the traps are highly involved in the pull-ups. Now, one of the reasons why the pull-ups are so good is because it's using all those muscles at once. Of course, your biceps are used, the posterior delts, and these are secondary muscle groups, but the main muscles, your lats, your traps, and of course, some of the smaller muscles that are included maybe under, like the rhomboids, the teres major, is another larger muscle, kind of located a bit around here. So kind of on top of the lat muscle there. So many muscles all working together. That's why the pull-ups are an amazing exercise and one you should definitely practice and eventually perfect. Okay, so we covered the pull-ups. Now let's go over a variation of the pull-ups that uses the same mechanics, same muscles, but let's say you just struggle too hard with the pull-ups, even if it's band or assisted. There is one way to still work all those muscles and still use that same movement, and it's going to be the pull down. So we have Michaela here at the machine. It's gonna be cables, so she's just gonna get on her knees. Now there's different machines to do this. We're just using this machine. Obviously there's specific pull down machines in commercial gyms, but it's gonna be all the same really. So as you can see, she's in that same general position with her arms and shoulders all the way in that stretch position there, and now she's going to be depressing her shoulders, pulling down, the elbows coming kind of back, right in those back pocket areas, and getting a nice stretch in the lats, pulling straight down, nice squeeze in the lats. So there you go. So an easy variation that you can do that is gonna mimic a pull-up, still the same mechanics, same muscles, but you don't have to do a pull-up. Now there's also a variation we do wanna talk about, which you can use with your own body weight, and it's gonna be a chin up, or in this case on the machine is gonna be a underhand pull down. Now there's one key difference in this that we do wanna talk about. As you do an underhand pull down or a chin up, because of the placement of your, the rotation of your hands, all of a sudden that's gonna bring your elbows closer to your body there as you pull it down. As you can see, elbows a lot closer. And this is going to put the lats in a more optimal position to engage and to pull that humerus into position there. So that's one thing you have to think about in doing different exercises, is changing an angle. Even if it's slight, it is going to help target or engage a specific muscle a little bit more over the others. Because now, boom, now she's going wide, as you can see, kind of at a wider angle. So teres major, the rhomboid, traps, but then as she goes close, bringing that humerus in, it's going to allow the lats to help a lot more, engage more, and get more of that stimulus in the lats. So there you go. So a quick variation and a quick change, an angle change there to target, let's say, if you want to work more of the lats over the other muscles. Nice. Ow, fuck. That didn't hurt. Now moving on to helping to target the lats or a specific muscle, in this case is going to be lats, this is going to be an isolation movement for the lats. Now we were talking about in the beginning, the latissimus dorsi muscle is connecting to the humerus, and it's going to help with shoulder extension, bringing that humerus down and back there. And as you can see with the straight arm pull downs, it is targeting that specific movement. With the straight arms, it's really engaging the lats and pulling that arm, boom, down and back there. Now, again, like we were saying, it's hard to target one specific muscle. There are still muscles that are helping, which is gonna be the teres major, a little bit in the traps there, but the lats are doing a majority of the work. You'll also feel a little bit in the triceps. Now, this is the funny thing about the muscles in the body, especially the back as well, when you think about all the muscles kind of interconnecting, the complexity of all these muscles like all connected throughout here. They're going to help each other. Even if it's an isolation movement, there are muscles that will help each other in every movement. Now with the back, although it's targeting the lat in a straight arm pull down through more that isolated movement, you do have to think there are other muscles that are going to be helping out. And that's why some people might do this exercise and be like, my triceps, they're burning, is because the triceps actually help with that shoulder extension as well. So it's kind of funny it works out that way, but it shouldn't deter you from using different exercises, either compound or isolation movements, because one of the reasons why this can be so good, not only to really like try to help target or engage a specific muscle a little bit more over the others, but it also gives that mind muscle connection. Now, there is a variation of the straight arm pull down, and that's gonna be the pullover. Now you can use these with a dumbbell, very simple. You get on a bench and you're pulling, so same kind of motion. It's gonna be that shoulder extension, although in this case, it's going to be in that extreme stretch position overhead there. Now, not to get too confusing, but you do have to remember, like we were saying earlier, all these muscles are connected. So as you bring that arm overhead here, all of a sudden that chest now, because of this extreme flexion, the chest is gonna help with part of it, then the lat's gonna take over. So a pullover isn't going to be working the exact same as a straight arm pull down because of the positioning, the extreme flexion in the shoulder, because the chest is gonna begin to help pull. And by that time, you know, the lat is still working, but by the time you bring that dumbbell into the end position, you know, you haven't fully engaged the full range of motion of the lat, which the straight arm pull down finishes off that area there. So pull over, starting from here, extreme flexion, bring it into a partial kind of extension with the straight arm pull down, gets that full extension in the arms there. So we would recommend doing both of them. Not in the same workout, you don't have to do it in the same workout, but you know, alternate them throughout different days just to get a kind of different range of motion, a fuller range of motion, so you can make sure you're balancing out all those muscles that work together. So there's something else we want to talk about. Most of these movements, or all these movements we've done so far, are bilateral movements. Bilateral meaning you're working both sides of the body at the same time. Bilateral, boom, boom, just like so. Now the problem is, it's very normal for you or anybody to be asymmetrical. So there's always going to be a side that is more dominant. So either being larger, stronger, you know, slightly off, that needs correction, whatever it may be. Now, I'm not saying this exercise is gonna fix all of that, but I do wanna talk about unilateral movements or exercises, meaning it's going to target one side at a time. Now, this can be very important because it can not only be a sign of a slight weakness or dominance in one side, meaning if you start with your left side, you bust out 12 reps easy, you move to your right side, I can only get 8 reps. Wait a second. So it's a great way to tell you what you need to work on, but also a great way to work on that issue there. Because of course, let's say you get 10 reps on your left side, oh, you only get 8 reps on your right, you know, you get a small break there, and then you bust out maybe 4 more repetitions, so that way you're doing a little extra volume on your weaker side there. So eventually, as the months progress, years progress, you'll even that out. It's gonna take patience and it's gonna take hard work to be able to do that, but it's very important, especially if you wanna really try to be more symmetrical or at least balance your body out that way. So the unilateral motion we're gonna be doing today in this video is going to be a single arm dumbbell row. Now, all the same stuff applies that we were just talking about. A lot in the lat, of course, because one, elbow is running close, just like so. A little bit in the rear delt there, biceps. This is a compound movement, so you get that shoulder extension, the elbow flexion and extension in there. So it's various joints and muscles moving. Of course, you get a little bit of the trapezius there working because it's retracting. And so this is some of the difference that you have to think about in the different motions and positions. So you can stop me, Kev, thank you. Now, there is vertical and horizontal pulling. So a vertical pull is like the pull-ups, pull-downs. It's vertical. So something like this, in a bent over position, or let's say you're doing a seated cable row, that is a horizontal pull. So horizontal pull, vertical pull. It's basically the two pulling motions that will separate pretty much all the exercises there. And one of the big differences of those two is going to be the traps. So traps in a vertical pull is going to be depressing your scapula, as we talked about earlier. Now a horizontal pull, like this one, you're gonna be retracting your scapula. So all of a sudden now, you're gonna be working more of this kind of midsection of the traps because it's pulling your scapula inward, just like so. So it's retracting them back rather than depressing. Now, you do wanna try to keep your shoulders depressed, so you don't wanna be like shrugging them up while you're doing any of these kind of motions. So they're still depressed, but they're not kind of going through that depression motion. They're focusing more on the retracting the scapula inward as you're pulling that weight up there. So some people can struggle with those two motions, depressing the scapula, retracting the scapula. And in order to learn how to really do that and also strengthen those traps and strengthen that motion is very simple. The first one would be just hanging from a bar as you're about to do a pull-up and just work on that shoulder depression, that just depressing your scapula there. Very simple movement, very short movement, but very important because that's going to be, you know, one of the main movements of any vertical pull. Depress, there, stretch, depress, boom. So it's working on that motion there. So another thing you want to do, of course, with the horizontal pulls is going to be shoulder retraction or scapular retraction. And an easy way to do that is you can do it with a cable. Now, as you can tell, we have this, you don't have to have this exact same setup. It looks like she's in a torture device, but it really is just a very simple movement. As you can see, stretch. So she's in a protracted, meaning she's rolling her shoulders forward. As you can see, really broad back, kind of stretched out, and now she's retracting her scapula, boom. Now, this is extremely important to engage those trap muscles, rhomboids, all that to pull those shoulders in position. Now, this is really interesting when you think about shoulder retraction. Okay, thank you, that was awesome. It's not just for back. I mean, it is, it's all those back muscles that are engaging, but you'll notice this a lot if you watch any chest kind of tutorials, bench press, all those kind of movements that involve chest or shoulder stabilization. It's always said to retract your scapula, because once you retract your scapula, it's helping to contract not only the traps, also like your rotator cuff, you know, your lats, all those muscles. And because of that, because it's flexing all those muscles together, all of a sudden that shoulder joint is gonna be extremely stable. So one way to learn that is to isolate that movement with cables like we just did, or you could even do dumbbells. Be in a prone position, hanging your arms down, and just simple retract on like an incline bench. Now that we're on the subject of the trapezius muscles, talking about depression, retraction, we do have to talk about another movement that they help out with, which is going to be elevation. So elevation is going to be pulling your shoulders up, almost like imagining you're pulling your shoulders up to your ears there. Boom, this is gonna primarily work the upper traps through here because it's gonna be shortening, bringing your shoulders upward just like that. So you can use these with dumbbells, barbell, but it's really just trying to balance out your specific look, like what you want. Obviously the traps are gonna be involved a lot in the compound movements. This is an isolation for the traps, more the upper traps, much like the depressions or retractions would be in isolation for different areas of the traps, but this can be essential if you're really trying to help develop your upper trap. So super simple, easy motion to really round out that full back look. Now, I did want to mention a couple movements that a lot of people have questions about. Is it a leg movement? Is it a back movement? Well, it's both. And these exercises are gonna be like rack pulls, they're gonna be deadlifts. So more of those compound movements that are working on hamstrings, glutes, lower back, lats, shoulders, I mean, you name it. It's a lot. But I do want to talk about the reason why it is involving the back and can develop a nice, thick, strong back. So as you see in this position here, and we're doing a rack pull right now, but same goes for deadlifts, as you extend upwards into the top position, now you'll notice one thing. So get down to the lower position, Michaela. Nice. So the shoulders here are what you would say probably more in a flexed position, so they're not fully extended, but as you raise up, as you get that tension on the back, that back is really gonna have to engage to pull those shoulders, retract those shoulders back, and hold that bar into place, and there is shoulder extension as you extend the hips and your body into the upright position there. Boom, full extension. Now, one thing that you'll notice about a lot of deadlift tutorials or even rack pull tutorials, they'll mention and they'll recommend, which I obviously completely agree with, much like you do in a straight arm pull down, pulling the bar here, you're gonna have that same kind of engagement or thing in mind doing a rack pull or a deadlift. So you're here, you're kind of pulling, you're like trying to tuck your elbows in and make your armpits disappear. That's kind of like a cue that you can use. So you're really trying to tighten that to the body, just like that. Shoulders are depressed, they're retracted, and you're kind of pulling that bar really tight, and that's gonna help engage those lats, all those back muscles there. Boom, just like so. So that's one of the reasons why rack pulls or deadlifts can help develop that strong, thick back. Nice. Thick, solid, tight. All right, we're on to the last exercise. Now we're really trying to cover the whole back, all those muscles. And so far we've done a pretty good job, but we do want to talk about the lower back, the rector spinae muscles, these kind of like two columns of muscles that run from the lower, but thank you, May, look at that, she's such a good sport. Kind of a column of muscles that run along the spine there. And we'll see Michaela here, she's gonna extend the hips and she's gonna be more in a flexed position to an extended position. Yep, so flexed and then extend. Now these are tough. They're obviously not just working the lower back, they are gonna work a little bit of the glutes as well, but much like with the deadlifts and the rack pulls, this one is also going to help develop that lower back as well. I would say these can be extremely important in strengthening the stability in the back. So like with deadlifts, like with rack pulls, that's a lot of weight to stabilize, to keep that back flat. Because obviously if you have weak erector spinae muscles, as you're deadlifting, the back's gonna wanna bend because it can't quite keep that spine straight and neutral. It's not strong enough. So doing something like this to target those muscles will help strengthen them to make sure super solid, super tight, to be able to stabilize that spine in those kind of more compromised positions there. So awesome job. That was all the exercises we're covering today for the back. Hopefully you learned something, hopefully you took something away from it. Maybe there's a new exercise to try out or some new techniques, but either way, it's always a good idea to learn those muscles, learn the functions, and learn really why you're doing an exercise to begin with. Like, what's the reasoning behind it? What are you trying to target? So hopefully you took something away from it. Awesome job, Michaela. Looking great. Yeah, we're bringing sexy back. Yeah.